Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
I heard a term the other day, lucky attachments. Forming enough lucky attachments will pull you towards your purpose. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me in recovery because if you're doing it one day at a time, and if you're doing it in cooperation with other people, and you're just kind of like you're holding firm to that mindset of do the next right thing, then eventually over time, those units will combine to produce kind of like whatever the purpose project is. Like you always say, it's the only insight is hindsight. And so building those lucky attachments on an improvisational level, you know what I mean, in sobriety.
I always say, I think the conscious mind thinks it has to be involved in everything, and it really doesn't. It's like it really is. It does sometimes, but ultimately it serves a purpose as an observer and somebody who uses that hindsight, like you were talking about, that kind of puts the story together. But the other thing I'm thinking about with this is something I hadn't thought about in a long while. I'd written about this years and years ago. It's that when you're setting goals, it's sufficient at certain times in your life just to have the goal of direction. It's like, maybe I don't know where I'm traveling to what specific place. I'm going to go north. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. Go like, well, there are so many places you can end up north, it's like, and it's like, and if we include northwest, northeast, all this, it's like, okay, but I ask people sometimes with early recovery, are you going the direction you want to go? Are you going the direction you believe you need to go? You'll figure out, you'll specifically find where you're going to be and where you want to be as you go along, but you don't, because I think sometimes we can this is part of the conscious mind thing. It's in a way we get hung up thinking we have to know a lot more about what we're doing before we do it. And if there's a lesson that I was a drunk as a clinical director of an alcohol and drug treatment center, it's like, and doing the work, it was like, I definitely was not in conscious process with that. I was pretty sick. This is how denial is, how ridiculous denial is. I used to go down to the Stockyard Lounge and drink at the Stockyard Lounge here in Nashville, and I would give people who seemed really drunk my card because I thought they might need help.
Beautiful. When you talk about your experiences and during this period of your life, trying to dole out the counseling while you yourself were sick, I was in day treatment, like an IOP program, around 2016, 2017. And I was in a program called Relapse Prevention. And it was a group that met twice a week. And I really enjoyed it. And I really loved the counselor, and he was doing inner child work and, all this other stuff. And there were the people that I was befriending there were starting to get some more significant time. They were coming up on a year or 2 years, and I just couldn't stay sober. And eventually they gave me the boot. Oh, and let me just add a little seasoning to that story is I had started to look into getting fake urine, so that I could piss clean and not be found out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just really liked the group. I liked that positive energy. And I could intuit that this was like a scene that I should be around and that I could find some kind of place in. But I just I was not able to stay sober for the life of me. And eventually they kicked me out. And I was so incensed at that. I was just like, that's your job to keep me sober. You know what I mean? That's why I keep showing up. And
how dare
right?
you?
But I love the group though. I love the group, and they had something I wanted. I feel I was looking at them through the glass, and I could feel the warmth on the other side of the glass, and I just wanted to be close to that. And but there's a ticket for entry, and I was not paying the ticket. So yeah,
We love you, but it's like, rules are rules. And some of them are good ones.
when you talk about recovering from assholeness after recovering from alcoholism, see, I always conflate that with emotional sobriety. It's that second level recovery, right? That becomes your journey towards emotional sobriety. Um, so, as if Alan was sitting on our shoulders right here. You know what I mean? Let's make that the discussion for the last leg of the show.
There's 12 steps of recovery. And this is just sticks in my mind. One of them, he says 12 steps. One of them mentions alcohol. It's the whole step's not even about that. It's like it's a mention. It begins with a mention of alcohol. He said the rest of it, see, and that's emotional sobriety, what Bill was meaning from the beginning. The rest of it is how to be a better person. That's emotional sobriety. I mean, see, that's the thing I've gotten since we've been doing this stuff, and we're working with Alan, this with the podcast and the is we're just finding a language to put on this that makes it clearer and easier to convey to other people. But it's not different. It's it's what we've all been doing. It's what Alan was doing too. He's been working on being a better person. It's like, he didn't stop at putting the cork in the jug. He's like, and none of us did. And it's like but it's so we have something to call it. I mean, I used to say to people, I would say, what do people do who aren't alcoholics or who aren't addicts? Because I mean, I got to a place midway in my recovery where I was going like, because everything I've ever learned that's valuable, I learned because I fucked up and was in this program. So what do people do who aren't fucking up? How do they learn? It's like, and emotional, I said, there should just be one big A, just whatever, just anonymous, and this is what emotional sobriety is. It's one big A. It's like, yeah, no, everybody fits. You just need to find your way of understanding yourself from this point of view. And it's because that's what it is. It's a way of looking at ourselves.
To that question, it's like, where do the other people go? I find myself thinking, the women that I'm attracted to, or that I find myself kind of coming together with in relationships, are women that I also seem to have some fundamental incompatibility with. And I think that's a common problem. That's a common struggle that a lot of us have. But then on the grass is always greener. I'm always looking at what the high school sweethearts, or like the people who did manage to kind of like find a person that they reached a reasonable level of compatibility with, where every day doesn't need to be a kind of like some kind of struggle of like fitting the square peg. yeah. And just taking the pieces of your life and kind of like fitting them together into some harmonious structure. It's a different layer.
What do people do who don't have the 12 steps? It's like, now I understand. No, we're messed up in all kinds of ways. So it's like, and I know there's all kinds of ways better. It's not all. You don't have to have the 12 steps. But if you look at any of the principles of programs, if you look at Buddhism, if you look at 12 steps, if you look at any of this stuff, if you look at I study Stoicism. I look at Stoicism. It's all the same. It's just different words.
I found myself talking to a lot of normies this last trip out of town that I took, and I was answering a lot of questions about addiction to them, and I felt good about being able to just describe, with. I feel like every year, I get a little bit clearer in like the way that I can break it all down, and it's good for people to be aware of, like what the sick people walking amongst us are really up against. If people understand each other just a little bit more, then change is possible.
Still to this day, when people talk about addiction or alcoholism, they think about late stage gamma. I think it's in Jelinek's point of view, gamma alcoholism, one of many kinds of alcoholism, in which there's physical addiction, where if your brain gets just a whiff of alcohol, you're lost in all that stuff. I don't have that brand of alcoholism. My addiction is I mean, there's physical connect. We have a hangover. It's a psychological addiction. It's like in lots of different kinds of addiction. So a lot of times the system for people will go, they they will go like, well, no, I'm not living in the street. I'm not in the gutter. I haven't missed work. I haven't lost a job. Me neither. I never did any of that stuff. You know, I slept through. I locked my door and took naps in my office uh, more times than I can count. But it's like, no, I didn't. And I never got in trouble for my job. That it's like people need to know that no, this stuff. First of all, like any other illness, you want early intervention. And what we wait around for, what historically we waited around for is, let's let it ride until it gets real. Then we'll do something.
I don't see how mine could have been caught any earlier. I needed to hit that cement, or that's kind of like, where I've landed on it is, I needed to just erase all, erase all doubt that I was who I was. Maybe we could just kind of wrap up in 10 minutes with what's the emotional sobriety trial du jour? What are we working on at the moment that maybe we could offer some experience, strength, and hope in communicating to our people?
We only control our mind. It's like how we interpret what's happening to us and how we respond to that. That's it. And so anytime, and I go back to the Bill Wilson's letter we read all the time. And, when you're in distress, if you look closer, you will find unrealistic expectations. He doesn't say, look closer because there might be unrealistic expectations. He says the closer there are. And there are, and it's like and Allen talks about that at the beginning of every workshop of how we from that letter and from his own work that as long as we're trying to get the world to cooperate with how we want it to be or how we get people to do that, we're volunteering for powerlessness. And it's like, but the good news about that is when we take this wisdom, this one, I can control me. I can control my thinking. I can, and I put it into practice. It's like, and in the moments I'm doing that, I'm not saying that everything's wonderful in the world or I'm all happy and this stuff, but when I'm doing that, I'm okay. I'm fine. It's like I'm my integrity is intact, my self-respect's intact. I may not like what's going on, but and part of my power is I can express that. I can let you know how much I don't like what's going on, but I can do that in a way that doesn't imply that I'm waiting around for it to change because I want it to change, because that's not how it works. What do you think?
Yeah. It's delineating pain from suffering. I always think about when Herb would say that.
Yeah.
My thing was I loved alcohol. I loved opiates. I loved pot, and because I wanted to maximize my happiness and minimize my whatever pain I may have been experiencing, because in my assessment at the time, that was the mark of how well I was doing. Just how
Right.
how pleasurable is my life walking around in this moment versus displeasurable. And now the calculus has shifted a lot, where I could feel pretty good even in my unhappiness, because I don't know, I've just got a stronger foundation, and it's I'm not making my wellness contingent upon how much pleasure I'm experiencing in this moment.
Absolutely. I got that from one of my early groups with eating disorders. When I asked the young woman at the beginning, how are you doing? And she asked me this question back that has changed, shifted the big thing for me that I've had. It's shifted ever since. And I said, how are you doing? And she said, are you asking me how I'm feeling or how I'm doing? And it was, she didn't have to say anything more than that. I got that. I think the whole group got that at that point. But then she went ahead and answered the question. She said, I feel like crap. She said, I'm doing really well. And what we ended up talking about that day was she felt like crap because she's doing really well. It was brand new to her. She hated it. She didn't, you're talking about loving opioids. She loved her eating disorder behaviors, and she was abstinent from them. It's like, and she was choosing to do that, and she understood that that's where her self-respect, was. It was like no, I'm doing the right thing, and it makes perfect sense that it feels like crap.
When you watch like movies about love stories, does your
Mhm.
relationship to those movies change now that you're in a more recovery, emotional sobriety kind of
Oh God, yeah,
mindset?
yeah.
Yeah, mine does too. Okay, so I saw that movie. It's called Queer. It's based on a William Burroughs novel.
I
William
haven't
Burroughs
seen it.
was a
Mhm.
junkie and
Yeah,
alcoholic,
yeah.
stuff like that, but a
Hmm.
brilliant writer. And it's Daniel Craig in Mexico City in the 1950s, and it's about him, like looking for love and in all the wrong places, or
Hmm.
maybe all the right places. I don't know, but like it's about his like tortured romance with a man that he meets there, and anyway, like the first section of the movie is just like it's such a vivid, like he's just throwing down drinks, at the
Hmm.
bar and just like
Hmm.
stumbling around Mexico and shooting heroin and just doing everything he can to numb out. And the way I saw it, kind of maybe there was a past version of me that would kind of look at at his self torture as like what he really desires is he just needs that he needs to find his other, he needs to find that connection in another person. Um, because he just feels so isolated and alone, and the solution to that is going to be in the arms of another person. Whereas now watching it, I'm just like, well, no, it's just the person that he's looking for is just an extension of these other
Right.
outside uh the substances, just the sun on his face, when he goes out on a nice Mexico day.
Hmm.
um and there was just a kind of like peace an emotional sobriety, for lack of a better term, that that he couldn't name, that he was trying to locate, in his day-to-day experience. And the romance that he couldn't get to quite work was just it was the other it was the just another facet of the same project. You know what I mean?
Right.
That
Right.
and
Yeah.
it doesn't work out. Spoiler alert.
Hmm.
There's he has some beautiful experiences, or there's some really like wonderful beats on his journey. Towards trying and then failing to get things to work out with this guy that he falls in love with.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. For some, it would probably hit other people watching differently, because I I'm a codependent, I'm a love addict and sex addict and
Hmm.
all that other stuff. And I'm still seeking connection. I'm still seeking romance, with
Hmm.
someone else. But I no longer view that as like that is my mecca, like that is the thing that I must I need to find that
Yeah.
and hold on to it for me to kind of like redeem myself, or for me to finally feel whole. Like I've disabused myself of that, I think, pretty well.
No, I love that. That by putting it, by view something you remember how you perceived it at one time, and then you perceive it again, and you realize what's the difference? It's me. I'm the difference. It's like, and you asked me that question. Do I do that? It's like, I can even tell you 38 years into my sobriety that when you describe him in Mexico throwing back drinks, my little tequila boy, he's right here, and the romanticizing that I would do with that, and did in my head, I put it aside. No, thank you for sharing, but was the actual sitting in the bar drinking. It's like, I mean, my attachment to, I love bars. I mean, just like people talk about their drug of choice and they let up. I love bars. It's like, and I loved being in bars. And it's like, I was a fucking mess in bars. I just, earlier told the story about, how many times I've been cut off at bars, but it's like, that was so cool to me, and it's like, no, it's not. It's,
Right, not
I
anymore.
don't know. This is an old movie that Russell Brandt's done a version of it since then, but Dudley Moore did the original Arthur. Did you ever see that movie?
I hear it's really good. The original.
It,
Yeah, I haven't
it
seen it
was
yet.
really good. It was, and see, this Dee Dee and I talked about this just the other day. It was hilarious. It was what Dudley Moore is hilarious. It's like the whole thing as it was. I think Eliza Minnelli's in it. Is like it was so funny. The second time we saw it, many years later into our recovery, it was sad. He's just a drunk, and it's like you just sit there and go, "This is horrible." It's like not the movie's not horrible. This man's life is horrible. It's like and it really did interestingly take the fun out of that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, boy, do I relate. I mean, I feel
Mhm.
like I'm living differently now. But you feel for those people, my people, just for really having no peace or like no real what Alan would call differentiation,
Hmm.
at all, and not having a sense of myself, just who I am, independent
Hmm.
of all the other planets in my orbit,
Yeah.
and
Well, if you're
yeah.
if you're watching that stuff on the tube, so you're at home alone or with your girlfriend, is like, do you talk to the characters?
Oh, do I
I do
talk?
sometimes. Yeah, I'd go like, no, don't.
Yeah, I do.
I
Yeah.
give them advice. It's like, don't do that. It's like,
Oh, you know what's funny? So this is apropos of nothing at all. I mean, except for what you just
Mhm,
mentioned. I was on the plane coming back from my trip, and I was
mhm,
watching The Apprentice, that Donald Trump origin movie, which is very good, by the way. I
mhm,
put off seeing it for a really long time, but now that I've seen it, I think it's a great film. But there's a scene where like Trump is going around as a young man collecting rent from like the slums that his dad runs,
mhm, mhm,
and he opens the door and the tenant who doesn't want to pay him like chucks like a pan filled with boiling water at him. When he
mhm,
opens the door and he
mhm,
has to do like a Neo like Matrix dodge, to like to avoid getting
mhm.
this hot water on him. And anyway, I
Uh-huh.
reacted. I was on the plane. And I was just like, oh, And then the woman next to me is just like, I'm sure she already doesn't like to see like Trump on my laptop, next to her and
Right,
on mute
you're
while
already
she's playing.
ruining her life. Yeah,
Yes. So, but yeah, I will have a visceral kind of reaction if I feel like I'm really in the emotional curve of the movie I'm watching,
mhm,
and yeah, like um, this has made me the experience of watching that William Burroughs movie with Daniel Craig makes me want to read more William Burroughs because it's
mhm,
uh I don't know, just the addict experience without like being too much of a drunkalog because I feel like
mhm,
I get it, but it's more about
mhm.
like what is the person inside the addict that's being thwarted? Like what's the spirit inside that's being suppressed? And how is
Yeah.
that spirit's tendrils kind of like trying to reach out through, that kind
Yeah,
of
well, it's like
toxic.
what
Yeah.
we were talking about. The people that you and I, the me and you are talking right now. We were there in the throughout the days of our drinking and drugging, and it's like what we have been recovered. It's like we were there before. We were there during. We witnessed it. We were we were and we were powerless. We just sat there and watched and sometimes knew that there was stuff I should have been doing differently, but it didn't hold much weight. I think, well, this is bad. Okay, I'll do it again. And but yeah, and what you're saying is you can see the real you can imagine the real person in there. It's like they're in there. They need to come out. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I would really like to be old one day, Like I would really like to make it that far and
Mhm.
um that would not be possible if I was living the way that
Right.
I used to,
Right. Well, I don't know what it's like to be real old because I don't think I'm real old. I'm 70, but I like being older. I like the only thing I don't like about being old is just because body parts hurt for no reason. It's like when you're in your 40s, if something hurts, or for you, if something hurts, it's because you fell off a mountain.
I was
It's
just
like
gonna
you can
say,
you,
yeah,
you
it
can
hurts right
explain
now.
it. You can explain it. It's like no, when you get in your 50s, all of a sudden you get out of bed and you go, it's like, what did you do to yourself? It's like, no, nothing. I've just lived for 55 years. It's but that's the only thing I don't like about it. Otherwise, Yeah, I love being older. It's like I mean, I have a little nutshell around here. It says basically, you have to have two things to be wise, or to have wisdom. That is, you have to stay alive for long enough, and you have to pay attention. And that's one day at a time. That's another way to basically describe our recovery. We're staying alive, and we're paying attention.
Tend your life, tend your myth, cultivate your narrative with whomever you